We are now on episode 5 of the Advent Calendar series. We have a special deck for you guys. It was a bit of a viewer's request. It was something I was kind of on the fence about. It was going to be another deck that I kind of have as a pet deck idea, and then this deck that I've been kind of testing with a lot and I've been having a whole lot of fun with. I want to showcase this deck to you guys. It is Thing Savior Dragon. It is one of the olden Legion archetypes. A lot of people think of Legion and then they associate it with Overlord the Cross, but a lot of people tend to forget that this used to be one of the meta Legion decks that took a whole lot of people to Worlds back in the day, and I want to see if we can try to breathe some more fresh air into this deck, and hopefully with you guys help as well, we can try to bring this back to the forefront again. So it revolves around the Legion mechanic. For some of you newer players who might not know what Legion does, it requires both you and your opponent to be on grade 3 for you to access a skill. It does have, you need to have a Legion mate, so search for your deck. Those are literally the only requirements, and you send up to 4 cards from your drop zone back into your deck. So you could have 3, you could have 2, you could have 1, but predominantly you'll want 4 because you can even send back your triggers and your Legion mate that might have been in your drop zone. Send it back into your deck, search your Legion mate up in your Legion. You combine both powers of both the units to your Vanguard circle, which is one of the cool things about this deck, is because we do happen to play Blaster Blade Seeker, the V version, which does add 10k power instead of the old school 9k, and you can also use its Vanguard skill because it counts itself as being on Vanguard. Such a cool deck, right? First things first, its skill is Counterblast 2, Soul Blast 3, so it is relatively steep in terms of cost. Choose 2 cards from your hand and discard them. Those are kind of irrelevant anyway. At the end of battle that this unit attack the Vanguard, if it is in Legion, you may pay the cost. If you do, search your deck for up to 1 card named Seeker, Thing Savior Dragon, and write it as stand. Shuffle your deck and then choose the Blaster Blade Seeker from your soul and Legion it. When this unit attacks on Vanguard Circle, it gets plus 2k until end of turn. So it becomes a 13k attacker. With your Legion mate, it becomes 23. With Force Markers, because the archetype plays around Force 1 more than Force 2, Force Marker is now assigned to both of the units on your Vanguard Circle. So instead of the standard plus 10k, your circle actually gets plus 20. So you're not attacking for 23, you're attacking for 43. Right, so we're playing 4 copies of it, so 3 OG V version of Seeker Thing Saver. You could opt to play 2 and 2 because you can have game states where you end up having 1 or 2 in your damage. You're like, man, I really wish I could do something else with this. Riding back into 11k feels kind of awkward. I'd like to have a unit or rearguard in my field again. This Seeker Thing Saver is an option for you to run a 2 of. It's entirely up to you. When this unit is placed on Vanguard Circle, search your deck up for 1 Blaster Blade Seeker, call out to rearguard circle, shuffle your deck, and until end of turn, that called unit gets plus 10k for every of your Force Markers. And then it also has an additional ability on Vanguard Circle. At the end of the battle that this unit attacked, if you did not ride this turn, Soul Blast 3, very steep cost here. You do not need to discard cards from your hand, but Soul Blast 3, choose 4 cards from your drop zone, return them to deck, and search for 1 Seeker Thing Savior Dragon, write it as stand, and shuffle your deck. So you can have situations where you can kind of loop back into this over and over again. It does require some soul though, so you might want to stock up on a little bit, but we do have some cards in this deck that do give you a little bit of soul. We play Majesty Lord Blaster, the V version, which gets a Force Marker on ride. It has continuous Rearguard Circle, Vanguard Circle. If you have Blaster Dark and Blaster Blade in your soul, this unit gets plus 5k and a drive check for the rest of the game. As long as it's on Vanguard Circle, it gets 1 additional drive. It gets triple drive for free. You just need a Blaster Dark and a Blaster Blade in your soul. But you're like, huh, how do we even get access to that? Well, now we have this cool on-attack skill that allows you to choose 2 rear guards to put them into your soul, and you make 2 Force Markers. So you get 3 Force Markers in 1 turn? It's one of the reasons why we're running this instead of the Alt Mile package, because getting 3 Force Markers, you can choose to give 1 to your Vanguard and 2 to your rear, or you can give 2 to rear and rest to Van, or you can do 3 Van if you want to, if you're crazy enough to do that. It's up to you. It's redundant power, to be honest. I mean, you're hitting for close to 100k, which is kind of funny because almost no deck can really guard against that, to be honest, which is nice as a utility piece. DBTO 5 version of Blaster Blade. So the D version of Blaster Blade allows us to on ride Counterblast 1, retire one of our opponent's rear guards, And it also has the ability, if you do not retire anything, you get to draw a card, which is really good. Or on rearguard circle, Counterblast 1, retire something in the front row, a grade 2 or greater. It does not actually need to be in the front row. The old one needed to be a front row version, so you don't need to worry about that. Then we happen to have Blaster Blade Seeker, the mate of our Legion, when his unit is placed on Vanguard Circle or Rearguard Circle. As I mentioned before, if you Legion, this is also placed on your Vanguard Circle, so you get to actually use this effect as well. Discard a card from your hand. Choose up to one of your opponent's front row rearguards. Retire it. Choose one of your Vanguards with Seeker in its name, with grade less or equal to your opponent's Vanguard, and that a unit's original crit becomes 2 until end of turn. The deck does require you to discard a decent amount out of your hand, so you need to kind of pick your battles, which one you want to do. At the end of battle, this unit attacked if you do not ride this turn as a rearguard skill. Put this at the bottom of your deck and you draw a card. So it kind of fulfills its own little niche in cycling and drawing some cards. It's pretty nice. And plus it gives you a target for your V version of your Thing Savior Dragon, which is always good. And it also plays a target for some other Blaster Searchers in our deck as well. So another grade 2 is Blaster Dark. So this Blaster Dark counts itself as a Royal Paladin as its continuous skill. So in deck, field, grave, wherever it is also counted as a Royal Paladin unit. You can discard a card from your hand, you get an additional drive during that turn if your opponent controls no rearguards, and if it's placed on Van or Rear, Counterblast 1, your opponent chooses one of their rearguards and retire it, which feeds into a lot of cool interactions that you can do, especially if you end up riding into this. We do run 2 copies of it because it's not really a priority. And now we have a favorite pupil of Light and Dark, Liu, which is when this unit is boosted, it gets plus 3k. It also has the ability of when this unit is boosted, Counterblast 1, put itself into Soul, allows you to call any unit with grade 2 blaster in its name. So any of them. Blaster Blade Seeker, you could call Blaster Dark, you can call regular Blaster Blade, any of the blasters really, and puts itself into Soul and he calls the card, and that unit that got called gets plus 3k. So all of these become 13k beater. And it also feeds into Soul. It does spend a little bit of your Counterblast, which does make it conflict a tiny bit with your push turn. We are playing the Overdress PGs because we're combining it with a specific card that I will show you a cool interaction about it at the end of this video. Then we are playing Knight of Exemplary Sword Lucius, which also plays into a combo I'll teach you guys at the end of the video. When your grade 3 or greater Vanguard is placed, put this into your Soul, you draw a card, and then you call a card from your hand to Rearguard Circle, which plays into a lot of devastating plays that you could possibly go off of. Then we also play Wingle Brave. I've also been on the fence about this card too as well. It does have an on-hit ability that allows you to look at top 7 in your deck to add any blaster with name, but we do happen to have a new promo card that does, at the end of battle that is boosted or attacked, you put it into your Soul and you look at the top 7 to add 1. You could replace it with this card, but it is a D promo grade 1, and blasters do have a little bit of an issue of being very promo centric sometimes, so finding it is gonna be entirely up to you. Then we have Blaster Friend Bargol, which is referenced in Liu. His skill is when you have a Blaster Blade that is placed on Rearguard Circle in the same column as this unit, if you have a Vanguard with Blaster in its card name, countercharge 1. So when you're Legion with the Seeker, you happen to have a Blaster Blade Seeker on Vanguard, so that also counts to the skill. So that allows you to countercharge 1 if you happen to call the original Blaster Blade in front of it, which is really nice. Then for our starter, we do play the V Bargol, but you can opt to play Wingle Brave, the starter. Sadly enough, this does conflict a little bit with this Wingle Brave because this is also called Wingle Brave. You cannot contain more than 4 copies of the same card name in main deck, so you would need to cut one of the Wingle Braves and return it as starter. I still prefer V starter because of the quick shield, and especially as moments we want to discard cards from our hand in this deck, and being able to discard pseudo cards and quick shields and stuff is pretty nice. Then we play Strike Crits as 4 of for our triggers because it's pretty important for us to stride. One of our main win condition involves a stride combo. Then we do play one more PG as the draw PG. This could also be critical PG if you want to. Sentinel crit. It's also fine if you want to try close out the game quickly. Then we have 3 heal triggers. One blue OT, which is the Isfado, which allows you to re-add any cards from your drop zone, which can also feed into your Thing Savior turn. That could give you some extra cards in hand, which is nice. Then you might not need to discard any PGs and stuff. And also it does allow you to give a rearguard some crits, which is most likely going to be your Blaster Blade. Then we have Bringer of Dreams Balams, which is the defensive draw crit, which is good. You don't have to play 3 copies of this. You can opt to play like 2 copies or even less than that, because we are running Floral Paladin Flogel as an alternative win condition for our deck to push aggression, especially when our opponent's at like 3 to 4 damage and we just need to try to close out the game. It's very important for us to finish it, man. This is a deck that doesn't have a whole lot of defensive capabilities outside of just G-guarding, PGing. It doesn't have like a whole bunch of extra shielding, so it's a very aggressive deck and you want to go as quickly as you can. All right, and now to our G-Zone. After mentioning, of course, we do play Elementaria because it's just a good card that plays around a decent amount of guard restricts the opponent might hit you with. Then for our G-Zone, we're playing Harmonics Messiah, good card. Then we are playing Crystal Luster Dragon. It does have the skill of Act. Once per turn, turn a card from your G-Zone face up, so you could turn up anything. We do have a particular card that you might want to turn up. I'll show you in a second. Copy your heart. So you basically copy the grade 3 that you strode up on. So you copy all of the effects and all of the abilities of that card until end of turn. And then it also has a GB3, which allows you to, during this turn, whenever your Vanguard or Rearguards attack, if you happen to control 3 grade 2s or greater, your opponent needs to guard with 3 cards from hand at the same time. Very spooky. Then we do happen to have Aerial Divine Altmile. Opponent sometimes will damage and you, so it allows you to be able to flip this up. It does give your front row plus 3k, and if you happen to be on GB2, you can call a grade 2 out of deck, which give it plus 5k until the end of turn. This is for just the turns that you might want to just first search for a rearguard out of your deck. You might have a flow goal. You're like, well, I kind of have a little bit of a cute multi-attack this turn, and my opponent is not really giving me any damage, and I want to do at least 4 attack. This, being able to combine it with flow goal, gives you a way to do so. Then we're also playing Shrouded Divine Knight Gabblade, which also gives you another grade 2 out of your deck. And it doesn't matter if you're hit or not, but you could opt to run another Stride instead of this one. It's the one that's Counterblast 1. You call cards equal to up to your board equal to the units that you control, so you can basically call over them. And if you control like I think 4 or 5 units in play, you get to create a force marker, which is also not bad. And now for Holy Divine Knight Ganslot Peacesaver, it does give your Blaster Blades in their card name Resist, which is your Blaster Blade, regular Blaster Blade, and you're also your Blaster Blade Seeker. It gives them resist while face up in a G-Zone for the rest of the game. And it also has the additional ability that if you do stride into it and you have another card in your G-Zone face up, it gets an additional crit. But its flat other ability is that you get to countercharge one and you get an additional drive check, which is, it's not bad as a toss-up. Divine Knight of Twin Absolutes, Saint of Twin Sword, which has the ability of giving your grade 2 rearguards when they are placed from deck. This unit, that unit gets plus 5k for each of your face-up cards in your G-Zone, which can get very big. And you can turn up any card in your face-up in your G-Zone. When this card is boosted, you can call up to 2 grade 2s from your deck to rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. Play a copy of it and you can flip up almost anything in your G-Zone for that skill. And then off to our G-Guards, we are playing 2 copies of Fate Sacred Staff Morgause. She gives plus 10k to one of your rearguards as a shielding option for you, so it gives you plus 10k shield, so it's a 15k shield rearguard. And it also has an additional ability of you can Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, and that unit that did end up intercepting for you also gives you a PG. So then now we have the combo card that I was talking about. Little Great Sage Marin has the ability, if you use this for a G-Guard, you can Soul Blast 1 when this is placed on Guardian Circle. If you have a Vanguard with Alfred or Blaster in its name, which is literally our deck, you can Soul Blast 1 and you could search your deck for up to 1 grade 1 or greater card, call it to Guardian Circle, and it gets plus 5k until end of battle, and you shuffle your deck, which would be this old boy over here. So if you happen to be in a situation where, oh man, I can't really stop a whole lot of these attacks, you could just superior call these out of your deck, because this is when it's put on your Vanguard Circle now. The other ones used to be if this is placed from hand, it would only PG you, but now you have put. You don't have to worry about that anymore. And then we do happen to run 1 Dark Element Dismal, which does protect some of your rearguards from being attacked or being retired during your opponent's battle steps. It does help you a whole lot to deal with a lot of your opponent's threats sometimes. It's helpful to protect some of your stuff. It's really good. Then we move on to the mulligan, the cards that you want to keep in your hand, and off to the combos. And now, cards to keep. The two primary cards you're going to be looking for this deck is going to be your Wingle Brave, grade 1, and it's going to be your MLB. Those are going to be your two best first rides, and that's the grade 2 kind of doesn't really matter. It helps if you see Leo plus Blaster Friend Barkle, but it's not too important. The deck kind of does the thing. And now for combo lines. So here we have an established board of your Crystal Luster Turn paired up with your Thing Savior that you have in your soul. So you have Thing Savior Dragon on your Vanguard circle. We resolved our Legion already, which is one of the cool interactions that this deck has, is that for a lot of people at home who might not know, is that since Crystal Luster does end up copying your Heart skill, you can actually Legion on next to your G unit. So then it combines both of these powers together. And since we have already done our MLB play, we have our 3 force markers already. Our board is looking a little bit thin, but then you can also commit like extra copies of Lucius. You might have maybe a Liu, you know. It's entirely up to what you could possibly have in your hand. You also could possibly have it that you gave 3 of these circles a force marker, so you make your attacks a little bit more even. And you make these attacks a little bit more even, but it can be a situation that if your opponent hits a defensive trigger, it can stop your turn entirely. So I would say possibly just give 1 marker to your Vanguard. If you get more markers, then that's fantastic. You give 1 to Van and the rest to rear. So it makes your attacks a lot more threatening. They can't just go 1 G-guard it. They possibly could try, but they need to commit a little bit more cards out of their hand. Alright, so then we can choose to go rear guard, so then Counterblast 1 with this flow goal to send it back. But then we do also need maybe 1 additional to 2 additional damage here. And you're gonna have situations like this where you probably have another Seeker in damage zone. You can't really do anything with it, but that is what it is. You can then choose to use a skill here, then kind of attack with this, which is then 46, then boosted for 54. Then you have OT, Spooky. This possibly didn't attack yet, or you might have, entirely up to you really. We draw, it has a crit on it. Second check. And third check. Doesn't really do anything for us, sadly. Then we CB1, CB2. We Soul Blast 3. 1, 2, and 3. Then we discard 2. We'll discard this and this. Then we search for our Seeker again. And return this. Write this. Legion here. So we have 3 more in soul, and we could pay the cost again of this into soul, this into soul, this here, and then this also has crit on it too as well. So then we could swing here, calling another Blaster Blade out of deck, Counter Charge 1 because of the Blaster Friend Barkle. This gets +3. Then we can swing with Van here. This gets a decent chunk of power here. Twin Drive again. And then we can do the skill again. And then we choose a card from our soul to Legion again. And then this, we need to Soul Blast 3. So then we'll Soul Blast possibly the originals, if we end up getting a way to return it. Oh, and then we also still need to resolve the OT, which could possibly get us back the... we didn't Soul Blast the Thing Saviors yet, so we probably would just add back the Wingle Brave, maybe. So then here we go. We got this board now. And then we have one more, a couple more swings. If you're at 5 damage, you basically get access to the whole thing, plus an extra attack extender. So it does require basically the whole stick of butter, but it's one of the most explosive turns that you can ever think of. Of course, you do need to be a bit more aggressive with this deck. But you don't need to be so frugal with like keeping cards or whatever. You don't need to care about your rear guards being retired, because the deck is very self-sufficient in being able to give you the pieces that you need. It just ends up coming down to like, do you see them on time? How did you mulligan? Did you keep them properly? Did you protect what you needed to get? Did you see any of it on time? And obviously, if you saw your MLB first, it doesn't really matter if you get a defensive bonus of +5. All you really care about is the extra 2 markers that you get from it. The 18k plus crit is all a bonus. It's all a bonus. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys for tuning in and stopping by. This has always been fantastic to do so far. This is the 5th one, our 5th episode. And you guys have been fantastic guests. Be awesome, stay awesome, everyone. If you like our content, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. It really helps us out.